One of the most intriguing parts of the Stormlight Archive is its unique approach to world building, particularly regarding its central setting Roshar. When one speaks of Roshar in the Stormlight Archive, you may be referring to one of three things, for it's the name of a continent, a planet, and a star system. As the second planet from its sun, Roshar has several notable celestial bodies, including 3 moons. All 3 moons rise and fall in the same order every night, and have unnatural orbits, suggesting they were put there perhaps by a higher power, such as Aharietiam, who in this series is essentially God, or at least some kind of presence with extreme power. It is said that the world of Roshar existed before Aharietiam's power was shattered, and that it was a planet completely covered by ocean. Long ago, in Roshar's past, there were no large landmasses. Then one day, Aharietiam decided that he would create a supercontinent on Roshar that was moulded following the shape of a Julia set. In mathematics, a Julia set is a formula that gives a geometrical pattern when a random seed number is inputted, creating a continent on an ocean planet that experiences intense weather systems had an interesting effect on this world's terrain. High storms, solid walls of wind and water, ravage Roshar's landscape, sweeping across the planet from east to west. These massive hurricane-like systems scour away any trace of soil and mercilessly kill anyone unlucky enough to be caught unprotected in them. We don't know for sure yet what the origin of these frightening storms are, but many theorists suspect that they predate the formation of the continent, that they are a naturally occurring phenomena as a result of the proximity of Roshar to its 3 moons. It is common knowledge that our moon's gravitational pull affects the Earth's tides. It stands to reason then that the presence of 3 moons, being really close to each other, as well as to the planet of Roshar, could be responsible for huge tidal events such as high storms. This would also explain how storm wardens are able to accurately predict their schedule with mathematics, despite the fact that these storms do not follow a straightforward pattern. Through the moon's orbits, they could theoretically be able to provide a forecast as to when the next high storm will occur. According to the author of the Stormlight Archive novels, Brandon Sanderson, the geography on Roshar was developed as a natural extension of the high storm, which was inspired by the persistent great storm on Jupiter. He built the ecology up from that by using a mechanism by which the continent would remain even though the land was being constantly battered and eroded by the extreme weather. To put it simply, what he used was a method by which stone is deposited by rain. The rainwater in a high storm is laced with a slurry called krem. When krem dries, it solidifies into rock. As the krem isn't regularly cleaned, it builds up over anything that stays still. What's interesting to note is that the continent is very slowly drifting across the planet. It's actually moving as it gets weathered on the east and gets pushed over the course of many millennia. Roshar's seasons tend to change drastically at random intervals. This is usually following a high storm, which can lead to abrupt shifts in climate from hot summers to chilly winters. Fortunately, plants like much of life on Roshar have adapted to survive the elements. Plant life are very hardy and can handle the shifts in this world's climate. Multiple species of Flora have developed shells to protect themselves, withdrawing into them whenever any danger approaches. One such family of plants on Roshar are Rockbuds. These curious plants have shells to shelter the more vulnerable organism within from the intense storms. Once the worst of a high storm passes, tendrils shoot out of the bud to absorb any water and nutrients left behind on the ground. Further east, where the high storms are at their most powerful, such measures are not sustainable, particularly in areas like the Shattered Plains. The best chance for a plant to survive is by growing nestled away in confined spaces, such as in deep underground chasms. On the other hand, far west in the country of Shinova, you will find a region rich in crops and other fruits and vegetables including strawberries. Here, the ecology is akin to Earth, as Shinova is the one place on Roshar that has soil, thanks to the Highstorms not being able to reach this region of the world. Native flora aren't the only organisms with unique properties. Like Rosharian flora, the fauna have evolved incredible characteristics in order to survive the harsh environment. Greatshells, massive crustacean-like creatures, are able to exist without being crushed by their own weight because of the planet's low gravity. In fact, did you know Roshar has a gravity level of only 0.7 g of Earth's gravity? This low gravity, coupled with a high oxygen atmosphere, provide very specific conditions to allow for the existence of these big beasties. In order to survive, however, almost all greatshells need to be bonded with some sort of spren, tiny pieces of power which have been given sentience. This bonding appears to be facilitated by crystals that grow naturally within the beasts' bodies. At the core of every greatshell is a massive uncut gemstone called a krhart. These krharts function by storing stormlight from the Highstorms, granting these gigantic creatures a form of nourishment, and works to decrease the pull of gravity on them, keeping them from collapsing upon themselves. My favourite among all the mighty greatshells is a toss-up between the chasm fiends and the Santos. Early on in the Way of Kings, one of our leading characters, Dalinar, organises a massive hunting party for a chasm fiend on one of the plateaus of the Shattered Plains. The party are accompanied by a military escort and numerous spectators, which includes the king. Their plan was to bait the beast to the surface and launch a surprise attack from a distance with arrows. Unfortunately, the hunt goes terribly awry when the chasm fiend rises up prematurely on the same plateau that the spectators are on. Now suddenly the characters are making a desperate frontal assault, almost leading to the king's death, which is prevented in the last second when Dalinar literally catches a blow from one of the fiend's huge claws in an incredible display of his armor's power. While the Sandford doesn't quite get any epic scenes like this, they are still pretty cool animals to talk about. As marine creatures, they are found in the Rosharian seas, and can be identified by their dome-shaped shells, which peek out over the water. Their shells are overgrown with seaweed, and are almost the size of 3 rowboats tied together. They have an eye as big as a human head, and enormous fins on each of their flanks, seen firsthand when Shallan is lowered into the water to study one of these beautiful beasts in greater detail. From eels that float in the sky to 6-legged dogs, it's safe to say Roshar has its fair share of interesting animals. But what of its native people? Well, the first inhabitants of Roshar were the singers. These singers, who would later become known as the Bashendi, impart information through singing. They are tuned to rhythms that correspond with their moods and emotions. The Bashendi share similarities with the native animals of Roshar, as they too carry krharts and can bond with spren to attain a variety of forms, which alter their mental state, bodily functions, and even their appearance. For a long time, all was well in Roshar, and the sinners lived in harmony with the planet, until humans arrived. The latest book in the series, Oathbringer, reveals that humanity came to Roshar as refugees from a world they accidentally destroyed. This world is Ashen, which is the closest planet to the sun in the Rosharian star system. The singers accepted the humans despite the fact that they used forbidden magic to destroy their own home world. Commanded by their gods and motivated by pity, the singers helped humankind, granting them the land of Shinova to live and prosper, as this place had soil to support the plants and animals the humans brought. Unfortunately, humanity has never been a species to remain content with what they're given. People always want more. The humans grew dissatisfied with the lands that were provided to them, and eventually spread out across the entire continent, invading, creating strife, and stealing the homelands of the Prashandi. This would give rise to a war which became known as the First Desolation. Many desolations later, humanity would find themselves as the dominant species of the planet, having long forgotten that they themselves were once refugees from another world. If you enjoyed this video, do consider leaving a like, and please tell me down in the comments what you enjoy most about Roshar. Personally, I think there is so much to the lore and world building of this planet that it would take months to come close to covering it all. Brandon Sanderson has done an excellent job in crafting a magnificent world that is rich in life and so completely different from our own planet, while at the same time still being grounded in science to make us believe that a place like this could actually exist somewhere out there in the universe. Remember to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and I'll see you next time.